Hey, this is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and in this episode, I am lucky enough to talk to Chef Curtis Stone. I've wanted to talk to him for a long time, especially because he has a restaurant with his brother called Gwen, which is a butcher shop slash restaurant. And when you hear about that, you're gonna want to go visit and check it out. It's just phenomenal. But we, like as most of these interviews go, it gets kind of tangential. We talk about his history. We talk about growing up in Melbourne, going to London, and then how he made his way to Los Angeles and about the Los Angeles food scene when he got here, and about his restaurant Maude, which is it's a spectacular 24-seat restaurant that it's going to be really interesting to hear how they set up their menu. It's definitely something that you need to check out. But as I mentioned, we go deeply into Gwen, and then we also talk about the charities that he's involved with and his cookbooks, and then his TLC show this week. All over the place, but it's wonderfully all over the place. Chef, I can't thank you enough for participating and for what you do. Really appreciate it. We all do. If you're digging these, please subscribe. Also, comment on these. Let me know what you're thinking. And if there's anybody else you'd like me to interview, I have a podcast version of this. If you go to your podcast network and type in Kevin's BBQ Joints, you can find that and find all my other podcasts. I also have a website at kevinsbbqjoints.com. But enjoy this. Good morning. How you doing, Chef?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Good. How's your day going so far?
Good, mate. I've got two young kids, so my day starts pretty early. Most chefs get a little sleep in, but my boys wake up at 6 a.m., so that's when my day starts.
Excellent. How did you end up in Los Angeles as your home right now? How did that happen?
So I started. I was cooking in London at the time, and somebody asked me to come over to the States and film a pilot for a TV show. It was the silliest show you've ever heard of, but I thought, I'll take the trip out to LA. Why not?
Okay.
I came out here, and I didn't really think a lot about LA, to be honest, as sort of somewhere to come to. It didn't have a huge food scene back then. And I was very happy living in London. But anyway, I came out and I shot this pilot, and it turned into 140 episodes on TLC. And, the rest is history. I fell in love and opened a restaurant, and I've got two boys now, like I mentioned, and it's home.
And the food scene has changed since back then. It has grown, and now Los Angeles is a place, and a lot of big chefs too. Or like even after Maude and Gwen, people are still there's new restaurants opening up in the last couple of years that have been fantastic.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's been a seismic shift for sure. I remember when I first got here, there was most of the good restaurants were kind of sceney kind of places. It was very Hollywood. It was all about who you saw rather than what you ate, and that's changed drastically. I think a couple of people a couple of chefs sort of had the foresight to do something really different, and it turns out there was a huge appetite for it, and those restaurants did really, really well. And now there's this huge influx of chefs from all over the country, different parts of the world, to LA to open restaurants.
Yeah, and it's nice because I grew up in Los Angeles, and I've lived in and out of Los Angeles, and I've always felt like Los Angeles needed to have that. That was always something I always thought it was missing, and I didn't understand why. And maybe it's just that shift you're talking about.
Yeah, you're so right. It was. It's always been a cool place to eat. There's always been good sushi. There's always been good Mexican food. There's always been a strong Koreatown. But that higher end restaurant never really existed here, and now there's a handful of those as well. And that street food genre couldn't be stronger out here in LA. So we're very fortunate.
Yeah, it seems like everything had just kind of made it to Las Vegas, and then it never went any further. That's where chefs kind of seem to end up. So you grew up in Melbourne. Was there a culture of meat in your life? Because my focus is kind of on meat. Because I know you and your brother opened up Gwen, which is a butcher shop, like more butcher shop centric. So was that part of your culture? Were you growing up making sausage or doing any of that?
Yeah, I did. We Melbourne has a very big Greek and a very big Italian contingent, so it's not unusual for one of your mates who has Italian heritage, let's say, to have like a little ceremony as winter sort of kicks in or the end of fall, and they would make salami, and then the garage would be full of salamis for the rest of the time, which is pretty cool. And
that's really cool.
So that was sort of like a little bit of a Melbourne thing. And I started my apprenticeship as a chef, but in a hotel that had a butcher shop. And what they did there was the first year apprentices had to go into the butcher shop and work in the shop. So, yeah, my first year as a professional, straight out of school, was spent cutting meat. And I loved it. I've always sort of really enjoyed that process, that craft. And, the thing that's so interesting to me is we give the farmer a lot of credit and how he raises the cattle. We give the chef a lot of credit for how they cook it, but a whole lot happens in between. The way that meat's prepared, the way it's hung, the way it's aged, and treated, and all that stuff, has a huge impact to the way it eats as well. So, Gwen, our restaurant here in Hollywood, was sort of to try and close that loop, I guess, have those intimate relationships with farmers, but also and ranchers, but also to really be able to control what happens to that meat once you actually get it.
Do you use that? Is that meat? Do you connect that meat to Maude at all? Is that something? Do you guys use meat from Gwen for Maude?
We do, yeah. We set it up knowing that we'd be getting calls from friends who were chefs looking for certain little bits and pieces because we were outsourcing stuff, and me being one of them. Maude's our little 24-seater down in Beverly Hills, and all of the meat from there we source for them.
So let's talk really quickly about Maude because some people might not know about that. When did Maude open?
Nearly 5 years ago.
Has it been 5 years?
We're going to be celebrating its 5-year anniversary this year.
Congratulations! Wow, that's great.
Yeah. It's a tiny little restaurant, 24 seats. There's now a wine loft upstairs as well. We called it a cellar, but realised it was upstairs, so it's a little bit strange. So we sort of start or end the experience up there with a drink and a bite. And it's a 10-course menu. When we first opened the restaurant, it was all about one ingredient. So we take one ingredient each month. We do a 10-course menu out of that one ingredient. Now that one ingredient has actually turned into a wine region. So this year we went to Rioja, Burgundy, the Central Coast of California. Now we're at Piedmont, so we'll take a small group of the crew over there, do the development on the wines and the food, and we create the menu from the region.
Does it change every about 3 months or so?
That's right. Okay. Yeah, every 3 months.
Oh, that's fantastic, and it's a tasting menu, and I didn't realize you're doing it associated with the wine region, so that's even cooler. It's
a lot of fun, like Piedmont, to go there, and Italian food's so regional, right? So you're sort of going and you're learning the exact way they make their pasta doughs and the exact way they do their sauces. And in some ways we try to get really creative with it and do something very different and interpretive of what we see. And in other ways it's just straight down the line. And it's like, this was so fantastic. We're going to replicate it exactly as it was. So, that's sort of how we do it.
That's beyond cool. That's amazing. I didn't know all those details about it, so thank you for sharing those. So then, did you have Gwen in the back of your mind? Like, have you had that for a long time?
It has been, yeah. I've always sort of dreamt of having some kind of butcher shop. I think that it's a bit of a skill that's been lost.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Most people buy their meat from a supermarket these days. And look, that's okay. There's a time and place for that. But I think when you're looking for something really special, that someone's really cared about, it's like going to a fabulous cheese store,
or your cheesemonger or fishmonger, yeah.
So we that's sort of always been a bit of a dream, and it started off super humble like that, and then we're like, well, if we're going to do it, we may as well have a little restaurant off the back of the butcher shop, and then that turned into a slightly bigger restaurant, and then that turned into fire pits and Jospers and Acidors and you name it. We've gone crazy in there, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's a beautiful location, and I love too that you have that window on the side so people can see your butchering meat right in front of them. Like, I've driven by and I said, told someone, look to your left, you can see, and there's like someone with a big, so it's fantastic. So then how long has that been open?
Look, it's been open just over 2.5 years now, I guess. And it's a cool business because it's so different. There's a 40-foot meat locker there. We make all of our own charcuterie as well. So we buy rare breed pigs from around America, and we make prosciuttos and culatellos and salamis and all of that stuff. We sell it at the farmers market here in Hollywood. So it feels like a real simple neighborhood business.
And you wet and dry age, right?
Yeah, we wet and dry age both of beef and lamb and ducks, mainly dry aging. We even dry age some Wagyu that we bring in from Australia. So, nice. We do all sorts of stuff, yeah.
And then, so did you know how to know how to make salamis? I know you had that you had neighbors in Melbourne that did, but did you know how to do charcuterie? Did you know how to do all that?
I've always loved to eat it, so I've tinkered around with it for years. We had it's a funny story. It sort of sounds gross, but my wife and I had a place, a little house, and I pulled everything out of a bathroom. It was sort of a bathroom that no one really used. So I took everything out of it and I covered it in FRP and insulated the walls and put a Salapro in the wall and, controlled the humidity. And she went away for a weekend and came back to find this spare bathroom full of salami. It was sort of me just messing around and testing stuff, and she thought I was crazy. But it was I'd tinker with it, and I guess I got sort of half decent at it. And I came across a guy named Justin Severino from Pittsburgh,
Okay.
who has a couple of joints, Pittsburgh Cure and now Morcia.
Oh, yeah.
And we sort of got talking nerdy about, how you make salami. And he had this really interesting technique that I loved, where he'd keep a real sterile room, run his room a little cooler than most, and wouldn't, you wouldn't grow any mold on the outside of the charcuterie. So it was a way more pure taste than I'd had before. I'm sure there's lots of Italian, people from a different generation sitting in their grave thinking about the way that we do it. But, so he's really mentored me through that sort of process. So we sort of run a program pretty similar to his up in Pittsburgh.
Wow. How many different styles are you making at once? That you have 6 or 10, or is it?
We do about 6 different sausages, so 6 salamis, but then we make culatello, we make prosciuttos, both bone in, bone out, we make copa, duck speck,
duck speck,
duck speck ham, we do all sorts of stuff.
Oh, that's ridiculous. And then the restaurant itself, can you talk a little bit about that?
So the restaurant, I always say the butcher shop is sort of the heartbeat of the restaurant, so a lot of it revolves around that. Charcuterie, of course, has a big piece in the front of the menu. And then, we have these different fires. I mentioned a big fire pit that we can roast whole animals on. We have a Josper oven, which is sort of a smoky charcoal burning oven. We have a bracero, which is a big fire basket, and we drag coals underneath a grill. So we can smoke and cook slow, and we can also cook quickly over a hot grill. So it's an interesting kitchen because there's lots of places that do that and do that well. Mm-hmm. The one thing that we probably do a bit different is we bring sort of the technology, I guess, of a world's leading restaurant. Like the stuff that all the nerdy stuff we play with down at Maude, immersion circulators and ISI canisters and you name it, right? All the guys we all run around with tweezers down there in Maude, and then here it's this very primal, cooking a pig over a fire.
Old world, yeah.
So we kind of, those two worlds collide a little bit here at Gwen. So we try and we call it Primal Elegance or Primitive Elegance, where it's, smoky meat cooked in sort of interesting ways.
And has the reception been pretty good? Are people confused as to it? Because it's different than what Los Angeles has had.
It is, yeah, it's really different. There's lots of theatre in the room, and people love that. So visually, I think it gives LA what it likes, which is sort of something a bit different and something a bit new. When you walk into the restaurant, there's this incredible sort of scent to it. The smokiness of the fires give the butcher shop a real sort of warm, homey kind of feel, if that makes any sense. And then the food, I think most people think it's pretty delicious. So, it
is fantastic.
The restaurant, and I always say you're only as good as your customers tell you are, and our customers come back, so we're lucky.
Sure. Yeah, and you can come by yourself or with a group. I think it's a perfect location, and it's actually, it kind of feels like this time of year is the optimal time because it's getting a little bit cooler. It just feels like this. It makes sense. Like not that the summer we have it's like 8 months of summer here anyway.
Yeah. The good thing is there's carnivores 12 months of the year.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like every single day. Now you have. I'm gonna try to air this. This is late October. When I'm gonna try to get this done in about a week. Do you guys have anything special coming up for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas? You guys do turkeys?
We do, yeah. We've got these incredible turkeys that we've got coming in this year. They're organic birds. We work really closely with all our farmers, and we make sure that we've got the best of the best. Yeah. We literally buy our beef from 3 different countries. We buy our turkeys locally. But yeah, we get, so any special requests, because, Thanksgiving is one of those interesting sort of times where most people eat a turkey, but some people want a pork rack, or some people want, something different too. So we can source all of that stuff. We have some different people that pop in here and buy whole lambs off us, so we can go.
And prime rib maybe even too. Maybe a rib roast maybe.
That's right. Yeah, we've also got a bunch of stuff in from Scotland. We buy game birds, so we've got grouse and
Oh,
woodcock, pheasants and pigeons and red-legged partridge. So yeah, it's a beautiful sort of hares and rabbits. You name it. We've got it in the shop
oh
at
my
the moment.
gosh. So as long as you give, is there any sort of timeline you have to order? What, a week, at least a week ahead, or 2 weeks ahead, or what? What are you
Yeah,
looking at?
look, the more notice you give us, the better it is in
Okay.
terms of finding the right size turkey or, whatever it is that you want. It's all pretty specialized stuff. But we know we're going to be busy around Thanksgiving anyway, so we stock the fridges. Don't worry. We'll have you covered if you come.
Well, yeah, I'll put links to everything. I'm doing a companion blog piece with this, so I'll put
Nice.
links to everything, and then also I'd like to get a list kind of the purveyors and different farms that you guys deal with because I think that would be great to highlight them as well. I think that'd
Sure.
be
Yeah.
important. So I wanted to kind of wrap this up because I want to make it quick because your time is I want to talk a little bit about some of your charities that you work with.
Yeah.
What's the most notable at the moment that you're?
Well, we're working with a charity called Adopt Together, and what they do. Last year, we worked with a charity called Chrysalis. We still
Yeah.
work with those guys, and Chrysalis is LA-based charity that helps people that have potentially been homeless
Mm-hmm.
or maybe been incarcerated and they get out of jail and they're trying to get back in the workforce but find it really difficult. And what they do is
I've heard great things about them. Yeah.
they try and get them job ready. And we've employed a bunch of them in our restaurants, and we
Oh, that's great to know.
still have maybe a dozen of Chrysalis's clients working with us at the moment, which is rad. And one thing that really stood out to me listening to a lot of these stories is a lot of these guys that I've met have sort of aged out of that foster care system and sort of not had a home as kids,
Mm-hmm.
like home for a minute and then they're out again and then somewhere else and then they're constantly being told that no one wants them. And one thing that's interesting to me about adoption is, if you're adopted into a family, then you've got a family,
Mm-hmm.
and you just stand a very different chance, I think. And
Without a doubt.
yeah, my mother-in-law was adopted. She was an orphan of the Korean War.
Oh,
And so in some ways, my wife wouldn't exist if she didn't get adopted into this American family, which would mean
yeah.
my kids don't exist. And the ripple effect is pretty
But
incredible. The adoption's expensive. There's a lot of red tape with it. So what Adopt Together do is they try and cut through a lot of that stuff for them. They have attorneys that help them out. It's a crowdfunding thing, so they help them with the finances of their
that's
adoption. Yeah, really cool.
yeah, really cool. And maybe I'll even do a separate blog post about that because I think that's really important. I think that's to
Yeah, no,
highlight that because it is a thing when people get bounced around to foster care and it just kind of it is like a domino effect too for their lives. It's
brutal.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We're actually doing a thing called Family Dinner this year at Gwen on World Adoption Day, which is in November, and some other restaurants as well are joining in from different parts of the country. So you can go and we're calling it a family meal because in the restaurant we have family meal
yeah.
every day, So we're actually going to cook that family dinner or family meal that we normally cook for each other for the staff because we're kind of adopted family to one another.
Yeah.
Kitchens
That's what it becomes a family. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So so you can come and all those proceeds will go to Adopt Together, which is awesome.
Nice. I'll promote that too. I'll find out when that is. I'll talk your staff. And then also TV wise, it has Top Chef Junior has it completed? It has, right?
We finished
Yeah.
filming, so it's on air now, which is fun. We just had Restaurant Wars a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah. How was that?
it's warming up. Yeah, I mean these kids can cook, dude. It's really
How does
something.
that happen? Is there something going on? Is it
My
because of
God,
the Food Network or?
I was talking to the executive producer of the Magical Elves, Dan and Jane, and I said, you guys created this because kids never used to be so
Oh.
interested in food. And now, with all the stuff on television, I guess these young kids are sort of growing up, watching it probably with their parents and thinking, I want to be a chef.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know how to cook. And they're learning how to do it. And they've got incredible dishes and recipes that they do really well. And, it's really cool to see them.
And I wonder too, like, do you think that those? I know that the percentage of those people will become chefs someday at a restaurant, but it'd be interesting to follow the path of some of these kids to see what does happen. But I guess maybe we would find out. They would talk about it as adults. But that's just amazing. So that airs on. What channel is that air on?
Universal Kids.
Universal Kids. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And then book. I'd like to wrap it up with your last book.
My last book was called Good Food, Good Life. And it's a bunch of family favorite recipes. Nothing too crazy, nothing too hard to do. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for Gwen and Maude, and because it means a lot to us in Los Angeles to have someone that is so passionate about food and giving us something that I think LA deserves. I really do.
Oh, mate, my pleasure, and thank you for what you're doing. We love anyone that supports us meat eaters out there and
Yeah.
give us ideas.
It's in
Um,
my yeah. I was a vegetarian for a couple of days. It was really difficult. It's hard. It's so hard. I love fruits and vegetables, but man, well, have a great week, and thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. You too.
All right,
All the
take care.